my fellow Pacific Island leaders, honorable ministers, members of the diplomatic corps, senior officials, ladies and gentlemen. Bulavinaka, and a very good morning to you all. We are gathered here because we face a threat to our very existence. Yes, on the surface, we are charting our progress towards the UN SDG 14. But our real objective is not to simply reach a milestone. Our objectives are to stave off disaster, to save our oceans for ourselves and all humanity, and then to move from surviving to thriving. In a real sense, we are fighting a two-front war. One front is a fight to keep the oceans clean and to sustain the marine plant and animal life on which we depend on our livelihoods and that keep the earth in proper balance. Land-based pollution, waste in the ocean, and growing maritime traffic are all deteriorating the marine ecosystem, and a growing world population with ever more purchasing power is increasing pressure on the stocks of food fish in the oceans. So it is heartening that we will have the first ever UN Conference on Oceans in June. And I have very high expectations that it will set the stage for our collective action to save our oceans. As you know, Fiji is co-hosting the conference with Sweden because we believe it is important for Pacific Island states to be very visible in the struggle to protect our oceans. At the conference, we will learn the truth about the current state of the ocean. The top technical agencies and the world's foremost scientists and scholars will inform us of the current state of our oceans based on the best science and data available. This will be the moment of truth. It will tell us what we need to do as governments, as communities, industries, and people. 7 partnership dialogues will provide a platform for governments and communities of scholars, industries, citizens, and NGOs to work together constructively. I think we will see old partnerships invigorated and new and innovative ones formed. Our regional preparatory meeting here will provide the necessary direction for the negotiations, which begin this month, on the call to action on oceans that will be issued in New York in June. So this is our chance to reach a consensus that will push the conference to take bold action. We have the facts before us, and we know intimately the way our people, our cultures, and our economies depend on the ocean. We are knitted closely together, and I believe that there is very little daylight among us in our positions. So this is no time for timidity. And we can show that one thing we are not is timid. My fellow leaders, the other front is the fight to slow the growth of global warming and, unfortunately, also to adapt to the changes we know are coming, to rising seas, encroaching seawater, violent storms, and periods of drought. Not all the stresses on our oceans are caused by global warming, but many are. The two are related, and we must work together to confront both these challenges at the same time. We in the Pacific don't need to be reminded of the effects of climate change. The people of Fiji and Vanuatu have had a very bitter recent experience with cyclones Winston and Pam, and realized more than most the urgency of addressing this crisis. And in Fiji, we have already begun relocating villages to higher ground, away from the water. Of course, we Pacific Island nations are not the only ones affected by the stresses on our ocean and by climate change. The pollution in the oceans is everyone's problem. Human society is simply producing more rubbish than we can comfortably handle. And every day, disposable items find their way into the hands of people who don't think twice about tossing them into the street, into a storm drain, or directly into the sea. Add to that ocean-borne refuse produced by tsunamis and other events, and you know why beaches anywhere look like landfills on any given day. And that goes for our beautiful Pacific Island beaches as well. They have been suffering in California, I've heard, from climate change, where years of drought caused a water emergency and were then followed by enough snow and rain this year to create a new crisis. And if the snow that just fell in the mountains, to great cheers and sighs of relief, I might add, melts too quickly, they have another problem coming altogether, because California doesn't have anywhere to put all that water. So no, this is not a Pacific problem or an island problem. It is a problem for everyone. But it is a particular problem for us, because most of us sit on the small patches of land that God gave us millions of years ago when they rose up above the waves from the ocean floor. For us, the effects of global warming and stresses on the ocean are immediate and potentially catastrophic. That gives us tremendous moral authority to lead the charge on both these fronts, to promote sound global stewardship of the oceans and to slow the rate of climate change. When Fiji stepped forward to take on the presidency of the next UN conference on climate change, we did it not only for ourselves, but for all Pacific Islanders and all those people living in other vulnerable parts of the world. As COP president, I am obliged to act on behalf of all 7.5 billion people on Earth. But I will naturally be bringing a Pacific perspective to the proceedings. Our most important goal is to preserve the multilateral consensus for decisive action on climate change that was reached in Paris, in the Paris Agreement at the end of 2015. We cannot afford to have any government renege on the commitments that were made. Many countries face short-term domestic pressures to back away from their commitments. There is no doubt that changing the behaviors that led us to this crisis will not be easy, but the rewards will be great. And besides, we have no choice. My fellow leaders, the time for casting blame is over. I will be the first to admit that I've railed against the developed economies for causing this crisis. And to be sure, it's the developed economies that produce the most carbon emissions. But they are also responsible for most of the gains in technology, in science, in medicine, and other fields that have improved the lives of all people. And the technology and learning will need to solve this crisis. It is also a fact that we have been striving to give our people a chance at the same standard of living. As developing countries have modernized and created a middle class, they've also contributed a share of emissions and waste to the environment. So we are all responsible in some way for the warming of the planet, and the time has come to pay the bill. We all must work together to deal with the consequences of modernity. For sure, our part in this is small, but we strengthen our moral authority in our political case by fully accepting our small share of the blame. Every nation must do what it can. All people must do what they can. My fellow leaders, I'm very concerned. In fact, I'm alarmed by some of the latest scientific research that we are being shown. Even at the current rate of global warming, 1 degree above that of the industrial age, some of the effects of climate change are very grave. The damage to our coral reef continues, as we have seen with the latest research on the state of the Great Barrier Reef. And agriculture is suffering and causing massive mass migrations of people. It is happening already in Africa and on the Asian mainland. This is some crisis down the track. It is a crisis that we are living today, now. We must get the world to not only adhere to the agreement we made in Paris and fully implement it. But even then, even that will not be enough. We must start devising more radical action to accelerate the reduction of carbon emissions. So I'm making an earnest appeal to you all as Pacific leaders to get behind Fiji's presidency. I say this not for me or for Fiji, but because this presidency will take our case before the world. This presidency will represent a consensus effort on the part of the Pacific Island nations to lead the world to do what is right, and to do what is necessary, and to do what is just. So I'll be counting on your strong support over the coming months, all the way to Bonn in November. We need to present a strong and unified front at that meeting, Pacific Island leaders of one mind, with arms locked together to achieve one goal: to save humanity from its ultimate folly. I'm taking the opportunity that this gathering presents to invite my fellow Pacific leaders to join me in Bonn. We need to present a united face to the world because, as you all know, we are bearing the brunt of climate change and desperately need to get our message across. So please be in Bonn with me. We owe it to our own people and to every citizen on earth to take every advantage of the opportunity we have this year to put our case before the world. We have the credibility that goes with living the effects of climate change. And we have the moral authority that goes with the fact that we are bearing a disproportionate risk and a disproportionate burden. We are doing as much as we can right here at home, and we will need help. That is why I also intend to place a special emphasis on climate adaptation through financial models and technical solutions, to get the world to focus on developing new and innovative ways to build our resilience to the effects of climate change. This is not a time for continuing arguments about science. It is time to do more to equip vulnerable nations with the means to survive the extreme weather events, changing weather patterns, and rising sea levels that we are experiencing now and are bound to get much worse. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for attending this gathering. And I again ask you for your support and your prayers. It is time for the Pacific, with one voice, to raise it on behalf of the many hundreds of millions of people in vulnerable parts of the world. And that's what we intend to do in Bonn and beyond. I thank you for your attention and your support. And God bless you all.
Honourable Voreqe Bainimarama, Prime Minister of Fiji, Excellencies, Heads of States and Heads of Government, His Excellency Ambassador Peter Thomson, President of the 71st Session of the United Nations General Assembly, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. Please allow me to begin by thanking our host, the Honourable Bainimarama, Prime Minister of Fiji, for the organisation of this important meeting of Pacific leaders. It would be remiss on my part if I did not also recognise Fiji's powerful vision to bring the disparate oceans, processes and institutions together under a single ocean conference, finally giving this issue the prominence it deserves. The ocean is our issue. The Pacific Small Island Developing States, PSIDS, have long been leaders at the United Nations and SDG 14, the Sustainable Development Goal on the conservation and sustainable use of oceans, seas and marine resources, is among our most important achievements. Now is the time to see that our hard-won diplomatic victories at the UN are translated into a better life for our people back home. The Ocean Conference must be central to that effort for improving global oceans governance, building durable partnerships, securing financial resources, and building domestic institutions and regional capacities. We should expect every significant international actor with a stake in oceans to be in New York this June. With a strong, coordinated effort, I am confident that the PCIDS can use the conference to accelerate efforts in the region. Our needs have never been greater. Overfishing and IUU fishing are depleting our most valuable resources, threatening the food security and economic viability of our small islands. Marine population poses a growing risk to marine life and to our public health. In the longer term, ocean acidification is an existential threat to our coral reef ecosystems. And the exploitation of high seas by a few is leading to an inequity for an area which is the common heritage of mankind. These are dangerous trends driven by apathy and greed that are all accelerating in the wrong direction. However, the UN Ocean Conference represents an alternative vision that promises a better, more prosperous future. Through improved governance, greater cooperation, and the mobilization of new resources, the oceans can be restored and a clear pathway to our sustainable development secured. This vision will not be realized without the leadership of the Pacific Small Island Developing States. Distinguished colleagues, through the UN Ocean Conference and COP23, the government of Fiji has provided us with two rare opportunities to put Pacific issues before the world, front and center. We cannot let them go to waste. Therefore, we, as leaders, must arrive in New York and Bonn with a very clear idea of what we want to accomplish as a group. I would suggest that we identify no more than 3 political priorities, informed by our best understanding of the diplomatic landscape. We can then coordinate our engagement at these events to best achieve our objectives. I would respectfully ask our host for their guidance on how best to spend our political capital and to use their formidable convening power to help open doors. We will certainly pursue a much longer list of objectives at the technical level, and we will all have our national priorities to attend to. But as leaders of the Pacific, united, we are the 1, 2, 3 big things that we can bring home from the UN Ocean Conference and COP23. Let us leave this meeting with a unified set of principles and a clear plan in hand, so that we can work diligently between now and the next time we gather in June. Mr. Prime Minister, Nauru in its national capacity and as chair of PSIDS, stands ready to support Fiji so that the UN Ocean Conference and COP23 deliver for the Pacific. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister Bainimarama, Prime Minister of Fiji, Your Excellencies, the Presidents, Prime Ministers, Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished delegates. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Pacific Island Forum Troika. Let me first of all pay my respects to the land in which we gather and also register our appreciation to our host for this meeting and the co-chair of the UN Oceans Conference, the government of Fiji. Your Excellencies, we should be very proud of the active role that we as a Pacific family play and continue to play in shaping the 2030 agenda. In particular, we were instrumental in the conception and the birth of SDG 14 on oceans. This is no coincidence, because since 1976, our leaders have made 8 regional declarations on our oceans and fisheries. The most recent being the Ponape Ocean Statement, a course to sustainable and sustainability that we agreed last year. No matter that we are small in our size and small in our economies, we can and we will continue to provide global leadership on issues that matter most to us. As we gather to prepare a region united for the first time ever, and for the first UN conference for the SDGs on SDG 14, I cannot help but feel the spirit and the manner of our Pacific leaders, and that of our ancestors who traveled this vast, magnificent Pacific Ocean that is now our home. While it is a huge responsibility to be the custodians of this large ocean on Earth, it is also a privilege to be part of a region that understands the gravity and the importance of its role, and the necessity of us working together and acting together. Our ocean and its vast resources not only provides the nourishment for all of us, but it provides 20% of the world's protein, economic returns for our countries, particularly from fisheries. Our ocean is an highway for significant shipping and trade, generating significant economic value to many countries around the world. But we are seeing alarming statistics about the health of our ocean, of the poor state of our coral reefs caused by coral bleaching and pollution, and of the negative consequences for our marine biodiversity, and of the levels of illegal, unreported and unregulated fisheries. So we need to not only make declarations, but also to accelerate and step up our actions and demand the same of others so that we can restore the health of our ocean. And also through embracing an integrated ocean management approaches and sustainably managing and conserving our coastal, inshore and ocean resources. So we ask ourselves, where do we start? The 2030 Agenda provides the global blueprint in terms of where we want to be by 2030. The Samoa Pathway and our framework for Pacific regionalism highlights the issues most relevant and pertinent to the Pacific region. While we look to the global policy framework, we can also find the answers right here in the Pacific. As our Ocean Commissioner has highlighted this week, many of the key elements of an enabling environment for political leadership, strong policies, institutions, and mutually accountable partnerships are critical for our oceans governance and the SDG 14 implementation, which is already in place in our region. For instance, our ocean leadership predates the 2030 agenda as reflected in the framework for Pacific Oceanscape, the framework for Pacific regionalism, and the framework for resilient development in the Pacific. The Office of the Pacific Ocean Commission, established by our leaders in 2014, is critical in coordinating regional governance of our ocean institutions and mechanisms, including the Pacific Ocean Alliance. Our region offers the world the best global practices, such as the parties to Nauru Agreement, the Agreement on Vessel Day Scheme, the Foreign Fisheries Agency vessel monitoring systems, and of course the local marine management area network that we have in the Pacific. At the macro level, strong political leadership for implementation and accountability for the results that already exist here. For instance, in 2015, when I hosted the Pacific Leaders Meeting in Port Moresby, we called for a coherent and, of course, cohesive planning, resourcing, implementation, and monitoring of the 2030 Agenda, the Samoa Pathway, and the Framework for Pacific Regionalism. We also called on our development partners to support our efforts through the right levels and for coherent financing, building our capacities in planning, in providing right statistics to ensuring improvements in delivery and reduced reporting burdens on our countries. The 2030 Pacific SDG roadmap will continue to guide us in the implementation of the SDGs goals, including goal number 14. Our regional set of sustainable development indicators will measure our regional progress on this issue. So in many ways, we, the Pacific, are already having a significant head start in delivering the intentions of Goal 14 at regional and national levels. But as we know, we have many more challenges to address. The question is, how do we build on existing mechanisms, policy frameworks, and institutions to ensure that we maximize our strengths and continue to address our challenges? Firstly, we must move quickly from dialogue to implementation. While we continue to call for global and regional action for our oceans, our seas, and our coastal areas, we must put into action our commitments where it matters most, at the national and subnational levels. We need to continue to integrate and institutionalize and, of course, embed SDG 14 commitments into our national and sector planning, budgeting, and accountability. We must continue to take responsibility and significantly increase our own efforts to creating champions for our ocean in all of us, including our younger generation. We must reduce land-based pollution, which will invariably end up in seas and our oceans. We must take an all-of-government approach and actively seek multi-sectoral partnerships for delivery. Furthermore, we need to strengthen our own national and regional capacities and strengthen our institutions and our systems to support the attainment of the SDG 14. For instance, our own government in Papua New Guinea is currently developing a national oceans policy and laws that will be establishing in National Oceans Office in our own country. And at the regional level, and with the foresight of our leaders, we have already established the Office of the Pacific Oceans Commission. All these efforts must be provided with a requisite levels of resources and support. Through our own commitments and by the means of implementation embedded in SDG 17 and on global partnerships across the globe and the Adidas Ababa Action Agenda and the Paris Agreement. Implementation of SDG 16 on strong institutions for peace, security and prosperity is a critical enabler of achieving this. We must also continue to ensure that all our available resources, including the support from our private sector, the civil societies and the other stakeholders that are engaged and involved in this national and regional policy making exercise. We must continue to ensure that there is sustainable and mutually accountable partnerships. The link between our oceans and climate must remain a central feature of our discussions. It needs to be firmly implanted in our global oceans policy. While climate change-related risks pose an existing threat to our peoples, our oceans remain a strong feature against harmful greenhouse effects, providing vital ecosystem for our communities. The climate change also threatens the very marine life and the marine assets that we have, on which we aim to build a more prosperous future for our children. I encourage us to continue to lead by example as we continue our joint journey together towards a sustainably managed and, of course, conserving our ocean resources for the good of our Pacific people, our region, and our planet. I thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates. At the outset, I would like to thank our host, the government and people of Fiji, for the excellent arrangement and great hospitality that we have all witnessed and experienced since the beginning of this meeting. I would also like to thank all of you, particularly our officials and our technical partners, for all your hard work and deliberations during the last 2 days, as well as the commitment of my fellow heads of delegation in supporting and working towards the SDG 14 targets. As Prime Minister Sogavare shared during the Pacific Ocean Summit and the Pacific Island Conference of Leaders in Hawaii last year, that for the Pacific people, we live, I quote, we live in the ocean and the ocean lives in us. The ocean unfolds our very being, end of the quote. It defines who we are. It holds our now and our future. For us, the ocean is both a place that identifies us and is a source of our livelihood. We cannot manage the ocean, but we need to manage the users of the ocean. As forum leaders reiterated in the summit last year, that the ocean is the most important natural resource for the Pacific region. The Pacific needs to assert its connectivity and right to self-reliance in the use of resources from the largest ocean and need not be apologetic for doing so. The UN Oceans Conference is an opportunity for us to put in a fresh perspective on global ocean governance, that we are stewards of the largest ocean with a right to sustainably and equitably benefit from its resources. In short, we need to approach the UN Conference on Ocean from a point of strength as opposed to expecting charity from the globe. We are co-owners of a bountiful resource base. This is our strength. The Pacific already boasts a number of regional and sub-regional ocean governance frameworks, thus displaying a strong leadership and commitment for an integrated ocean in management. However, the burden of conserving the ocean's resources must not disproportionately fall on us. Solomon Islands' policy approach on ocean governance is guided by the National Development Strategy 2016-2035. The government is working on developing a national ocean governance framework that will rationalize and enhance coordination and the implementation of all ocean-related legislations, as some of our previous speakers have already stated in their respective country. In our efforts to address illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, Solomon Islands is a member of the parties to the Nauru Agreement, has employed the Persina Vessel Day Scheme, VDS, to monitor fishing efforts within the waters. As a member of the Coral Triangle Initiative, Solomon Islands has been afforded a coordinated approach to marine coastal management with the leadership of our government and put a focus on people-centered natural resources management. Solomon Islands, with the support of Foreign Fisheries Agency, utilized the vessel monitoring system to undertake monitoring, control, and surveillance activities within our exclusive economic zone. We must invest in our ocean. In particular, we need investment in science research in order to better understand the capacity of our ocean to provide for our future, including the need to understand and build resilience against ocean acidification. We will also need capacity building and the transfer of appropriate, modern, environmentally sound technologies. Partnerships are the key to unlocking the knowledge and the finances needed to meet the SDG 14 targets. We need to bring others along we want to achieve success. Government, international institutions, non-government organizations, civil society, academia, the scientific community, and the private sector. We must keep the momentum going. Over the last year, we have seen a sharper focus on the sustainable development of the ocean by the international community. We are encouraged by the progress towards legally binding instrument under the UNCLOS on BBNJ. In addition to Rio, the Samoa Pathway and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development have been significant milestones in addressing ocean issues. The Ocean Conference will start the next chapter, namely to start implementation. The important work ahead is to make sure that the points raised by Pacific states are reflected in the call for action. Whilst the Zero Draft is comprehensive and concise, it makes no mention of living resources such as oil, gas, seabed minerals, or no sea transport, which are both crucial and economic development. They also need to be part of the discussion in the partnership dialogues. The region preparatory meeting was indeed an important step to make sure that our voices are not only heard, but that we continue to lead the agenda. Finally, in terms of a way forward, Pacific states need to also further think post-2017 June conference in terms of processes of global level. Ocean issues must remain an ongoing process at all levels in order to ensure comprehensive monitoring and evaluation of global efforts on the issue of ocean governance. Excellencies, distinguished guests, at this juncture, I also have the honor of delivering this statement on behalf of members of the Pacific Island Development Forum. A perfect storm of massive challenges, from collapsing fisheries to plastic pollution to ocean warming and ocean acidification, is threatening the integrity of marine ecosystems. We simply cannot survive, let alone prosper, if we do not reverse the destruction of the Pacific Ocean's national capital. This was recognized by our leaders at the PIDF summit in 2016 in Honiara, when they declared as a steward of the world's largest ocean, 217 as the Pacific Year for the Ocean. The resolution emphasized the necessity of governments, private sector, and civil society of the Pacific Island countries and territories to focus on the importance of health of our ocean and its impact on the health of our nation and people. In line with this recognition, the people of the Pacific and their representatives, together with our friends from all over the world, will be coming together in a knowledge of platform called the Pacific Blue Economic Conference in August in Honiara. This conference will focus on traditional knowledge, the latest innovations and lessons learned, and best practices to inform policies, sustainable management, and conservation of ocean resources for the people of the Pacific. A successful undertaking of the blue economy must include engagement with the private sector, civil society, and a community group. We need to create space for public-private partnership that is based on sustainable use of our marine resources. Furthermore, our civil society and community groups are the conduits of development at the local level, and we would like to recognize those resource owners who have made judicious use of their marine resources. The SDG 14 gives us an opportunity to holistically address issues related to the oceans through multi-sectoral partnership and integrated approaches towards implementation of the SDG 14 targets. This SDG 14 conference is expected to provide linkage to the SDG, particularly SDG 13. PIDF would like to see ocean reflected in COP co-process of UNFCCC in recognition of the ocean's role in climate regulation. In this regard, the PIDF Pacific Blue Economy Conference in August is scheduled to explore the linkage between sustainable oceans and the changing climate. Maritime boundary security is fundamental to the well-being of the Pacific countries, and without this, there is no significant blue economy secured in our region. It is also fundamental to the security more broadly of lower-lying nations, as no nation should be at risk of loss of maritime jurisdiction due to sea level rise from climate change. We cannot discuss climate change in the Pacific and the health of our oceans without addressing the issue of shipping emissions. When one also considers the impact of biofouling and ballast water management, one can say that the shipping abate importance is a major contributor to the environmental degradation in the Pacific. PIDF has been supporting member countries in negotiations with the IMO and ICAO processes, and advocating high ambition for emission cuts in both the maritime and aviation sectors. We call on all countries to support this initiative, particularly at the forthcoming IMO Marine Environment Protection Committee meeting later this year in London. Our ocean governance issues have been highlighted in most of the Pacific events recently, and the need to employ an integrated approach to decision-making related to oceans. A stronger commitment from leaders is required to improve linkage between local, national, regional, and international frameworks. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as we come to the end of the conference, we need to deliver on the commitments we have made during this conference. Above all, we need to speak as one voice of the UN conference in June. Thank you for your contribution to this past few days that has made this meeting a success. Vinakawakalevu, and thank you, Tomas.
In capacity as the President of the 71st United Nations General Assembly.
Your Excellencies, the heads of state and government present with us here today, and honourable ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Great pleasure to be here today with you. My hometown was good to be in Suva, even when it's raining. On behalf of the United Nations, I'm happy to have the responsibility of thanking our host as well, to add my voice to the others who've spoken in thanks. Almost miraculous that at such short notice, so many of us have been able to gather in this one spot, and it shows the commitment, the regional solidarity that the Pacific has when it comes to the ocean. So thank you to the Pacific family that has made the effort to be here today. Excellencies, the Ocean Conference is the best chance we have of saving life in the ocean as we know it. The conference will be a historic coming together of ocean stakeholders from across the world to drive global action for the sustainability of the ocean and its resources. As the only universal forum equipped to address the ocean's problems, mandated as it is by all 193 member states of the United Nations, the Oceans Conference is uniquely positioned to mobilize commitments and partnerships and action on the scale necessary to reverse the cycle of decline in which the ocean is currently caught. For Pacific Island, small island developing states, the stakes could not be higher. With the ocean making up almost 98% of our region's area, and with our cultures and heritage and traditions entwined with the ocean and with its resources, serving as a critical source of our food security and prosperity and well-being, the ocean is central to our way of life. But with generations of unrestrained human activity having pushed the ocean's health into serious decline, that way of life is under threat. The remedying of the woes that we have put upon the ocean, closely coupled with climate change, is one of the great challenges facing humanity in the 21st century. While Pacific nations rightly identify ourselves as stewards of the ocean, the fact is we cannot save life in the ocean on our own. A collective global effort is required. The scale of problems afflicting the ocean is immense, of course. Rampant marine pollution, ocean acidification, ocean warming, depleting fish stocks and species, illegal and destructive fishing practices, degraded coastal ecosystems, inadequate ocean governance. The list of problems goes on. But just as all of these problems are caused by human activity, it is humanity that has the power to provide the solutions. That's why the Ocean Conference, and that is why the Ocean Conference is being held, and that's what it is based upon, the solutions, Excellencies. It's going to be a clear enunciation from global authorities of what the problems are that are besetting the ocean, and there is going to be a strong global response of solutions so that we have a communal work plan for remedial action in the years ahead. That's why we're doing this. Taken together, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Climate Agreement provide us, when I say us, I mean humanity, with a universal master plan to create a sustainable way of life for humanity on this planet. And I want to pause here just to congratulate the government and people of Fiji for taking the leadership that Fiji is on the COP23 in Bonn this year and next year, and as co-president of the Ocean Conference this June. In the face of these two great, mighty global challenges, climate change and a degrading ocean system, Fiji is at the front line of action, and I know that the United Nations is grateful. Through Sustainable Development Goal 14, world leaders have committed to restoring the ocean's health and ensuring the sustainability of its resources. But as the President of Palau said earlier this week, the time has come for this commitment to be converted from words into action. It is in this context that this regional preparatory meeting takes on particular importance, for it is integral to the call for action that will emanate from the conference. Excellencies, it was the steadfast commitment and leadership of the Pacific Small Island Developing States that led to the inclusion of SDG 14 in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Again, it was the Pacific Islands that demanded a process of accountability so that the world stayed true to the noble aims of SDG 14 once it came into existence. And I think those of you from New York, and there are many here in the audience, from the Pacific SIDS, ambassadors and experts, that we should all be very proud of the work that they did in the 2 years that it took to fight through not one, but 2 consensus resolutions at the United Nations. And when I say fight through, I really mean fight. And I can see many of them here in the room who brought that about. So I express my gratefulness, and I think on behalf of you all, to those Pacific Islanders hard at work in New York for getting us to where we are on the Ocean Conference. Now the Pacific Islands have to be at the forefront of ensuring the success of the Ocean Conference. This includes by promoting the conference, by participating at the highest possible levels, and by helping to mobilize high-level attendance from nations beyond those traditionally engaged in the ocean issues. It also includes our leading efforts to shape the 3 structured outcomes that will come out of the conference so that they have a lasting impact on the health of the ocean. Regarding the first of those, the Ocean Conference's Call for Action document, I urge the Pacific Islands to continue close engagement in the negotiations and have high ambition so that we're able to secure a universal and succinct text that mobilizes ocean action, follow-up and review. And of course, the real work starts after the conference. Secondly, you've been made aware of the central importance of the Registry of Voluntary Commitments, now open on the conference website. The breadth and scope of the commitments on the register will remain a key reference tool to implement our work in support of SDG 14 implementation in the years ahead. I therefore encourage all Pacific Island nations to lead by example by making bold commitments to action, registering your commitments now, and helping to build global momentum for action that pushes implementation of the 2030 Agenda. I also urge Pacific SIDS to encourage regional institutions, civil society organizations, and the private sector and other partners to make and register voluntary ocean commitments, either as individuals or in partnerships. The online register awaits your commitments to action. Finally, on the third element of the conference, the partnership dialogues that will be held during the 5 days of what will be the largest ever ocean gathering, when the United Nations, for 1 whole week, the whole campus will be turned over to the ocean. During those partnership dialogues, I encourage the Pacific SIDS to engage actively in each of these sessions. Pacific perspectives on each of the 7 subjects must be reflected in the summaries of the partnership dialogue, discussions, and outcome. Excellencies, in order for the Ocean Conference to meet its transformational aims, it is essential that it is not a one-off gathering, but rather that it is a starting point to implementing universal action, follow-up and review. Pacific SIDS should continue to demand that triennial ocean conferences hold the global community accountable to SDG 14 as we push on through to fulfillment of SDG 14 by the year 2030. And we here in the Pacific must hold ourselves to the highest of standards of accountability ourselves for the commitments that we make, so that we may lead the world in staying true to the noble intent of SDG 14. Only then will we be able to say to our grandchildren that we have done everything within our powers to bequeath them with an ocean still full of the joy and bounty that we witnessed in our lives. And I thank you.